Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Kenny, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Tom, how are you?
I'm fantastic as well. We have Brandon Gibson on the show today. We're really excited to have Brandon on. We've got some challenges to talk about, and he's very inspiring. First, I want to mention that we're at the Coffee House on 2nd and Bridge in downtown Franklin, our favorite coffee house.
Yes.
Enjoying some coffee myself right now. And I want to just mention, keep the questions and comments coming, and make sure you subscribe. Get that button will be floating around someplace. But as we dive in here, Brandon has a lot of challenges going on, and is the most inspiring person I've met. I ran into Brandon at a training camp for Chattanooga 70.3, and let's see, he finished the 70.3.
I did
very well.
So
that's the spoiler alert that we have.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
We want to talk about what Brandon's got going on. So we like to let everyone kind of give their story. So Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself. Take us back to your childhood.
Okay.
What's your activity level, family? Give us that stuff.
First off, thanks for having me on here. It's my journey is kind of long.
We'll make it a two-parter if we need to. That's all good.
So when I was young, I've always been competitive, super competitive in everything I've done. So I started off, I got my first dirt bike when I was 2. My dad bought me a 50cc Yamaha dirt bike.
There you go.
Obviously, I had
Dad.
no idea how to ride it.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was just.
But your mom was thrilled.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't even touch the pedals. My dad put training wheels on it. He took it off the bicycle, put training wheels on the motorcycle, and I actually learned. And when I was age 4, I started racing. Went out with my grandpa to a 4-H fair. Saw a bunch of little kids racing. I didn't realize that all the little kids racing were like 8, but I was 4.
You were 4,
and so the next weekend I asked my dad, "Can I go race?" And then I was hooked, and I went racing when I was 4, and by the time I was 6, I was invited to nationals. Racing
as a 6-year-old.
As a 6-year-old.
Right.
Racing against 8.
And you're just like, cool.
Yeah.
Speed.
Yeah. And,
you're like, okay.
Yeah. And then we just moved, I kept racing. Until high school. The flip, and I was good. I mean, I was good.
Yeah. Well, you had to be. I mean, at that age to go to nationals and all that.
Yeah. And I really wish I would have stayed with it, but I didn't. I had kind of hit a fork in the road. I started playing soccer when I was 5. Okay. So we were doing both for a long time. And, and then I got to when I was 12 and I was doing club soccer. So I don't know if everybody knows what club soccer is, how much travel, how much time.
You're gone.
So we were doing both. We were doing racing and soccer on weekends. Like it was a race Friday night, soccer Saturday morning, race Saturday night.
Are you an only child too?
No.
Okay, so you still had siblings that are trying to do that thing too.
I had a younger brother that was kind of doing everything I was doing at the time.
Kind of had to.
Yeah, he's 5 years younger than I was. So when I got to 10, 12, that's when we were doing. Yeah. He was racing and kind of into soccer at that time, but it was more racing at the point. And then my dad was, "What do you want to do? Which way do you want to go?" My thought was, now looking back, the path I was going in motocross would have been doing well and making money. But, you have choices. And my choice was to go soccer because I wanted to play soccer in college. I wanted to get a scholarship. I wanted to go to,
There's not a whole lot of motorcycle scholarships going on.
No, there's not. I mean, so we settled and I went to soccer and played soccer year round from age 15 into high school. Got to end of high school. Didn't go play college. But, I could have went to some smaller schools. I decided not to. I was really stuck on going to Indiana University. And so I joined the military. Didn't really have any means to pay for IU.
Got it. So the military was the way to do that.
That was the way to do it.
There you go.
And went into the Army. Was in the National Guard and, started my career at IU. But while I was at basic training, that's kind of when the story starts to deviate a little bit, right? I'm this very athletic person. I played soccer, I raced motocross. I was really good in soccer too. I mean, my club teams were exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very good.
Yeah.
And when I went to basic, I was in very good shape, doing well. Got into about the 6th week of basic, and everything kind of went sideways as far as my health. Thought I had the flu, and they put me in the hospital for a day while I was at basic, and then sent me back out, and I did everything, but I was dealing with a lot of intestinal issues, a lot of diarrhea, throwing up, things like that. Like, I mean, it was just a lot of stress on my intestines, and everybody knows stress and stomach kind of
go hand
in
GI
hand,
issues,
right?
yeah, major.
So didn't really think much about it. Then it's dealt with it after I got back from basic. Dealt with it when I was at IU. Got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And it rapidly progressed, and it quickly, very quickly. I was on tons of medications trying to get it under control, but I could never get it under control.
Was there a cause for that, or what?
No,
Just
never figured out.
Never figured out the hereditary.
You
something.
Just got,
I just
got the card.
I just got the card. Just started having those issues.
Wow.
And went to the doctors, and ended up having UC. And so I'm still trying to be athletic, trying to do what I can, right? At that point, there wasn't anything major. Now, fast forward to when I was 20. So I started basic training when I was 17. Had the problems between when I was turned 17, 18.
So a couple years later. Yeah.
So, and then fast forward to when I'm 20, I've had UC probably 2 years at this, 2 years, diagnosed for 2 years. And when I get to that, there's one day we're driving and it feels like a bomb goes off in my stomach. Like, I mean, it was an unimaginable pain. Went to the doctor. He sent me to the ER, got in the ER. They couldn't figure out what was going on, but they knew that there was something wrong. So they did a CT scan, and usually CT scans, you can see everything.
Yeah.
They couldn't see anything. All they saw was like a blur. So they decided to do a laparoscopic exploratory surgery to figure out this thing.
Yeah.
Went in, I had what they call toxic megacolon. So basically my colon had swollen so much they couldn't see around it.
Wow.
It was that's what it was. From that point until like 2 days later, I don't really remember a whole lot. They kept me sedated after that surgery a little bit. I remember getting on a helicopter, being flown from Bloomington up to Indianapolis, kind of waking up, seeing a bunch of surgeons, going back to sleep, waking up, having an ileostomy bag. So
this is like life and death.
Yeah,
at this point,
it was.
right?
It was. Yeah. So when they were taking my colon out, it was basically it exploded. Toxic megacolon. Basically, your colon swells so much. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but this is what I've understood, that it just kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's what was happening. And I was so sick, they had to cut. Usually these surgeries are done, like an ostomy surgery or a reversal surgery is all done within 2 surgeries. They had to cut mine up to 4 surgeries because I was so sick.
Wow.
And so I wake up with an ostomy bag, instantly not really physically fit at all anymore.
You went from 100 to 0.
Yeah. And so that was it's one of those.
And it's jarring too. I mean, you've got a bag.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
you
weren't 4 days prior to that, you had no notion that, you're dealing with stomach issues. You're trying to figure out how to maintain it. And then all of a sudden,
if your colon was a limb, I lost a limb. I mean,
totally.
it's similar to that.
And we're talking small intestines, large intestines.
Entire large intestine was removed. Okay. So all the way from the ileus of the small intestines, which is the very end part of your small intestine, all the way through the rectum.
All the way through.
Wow.
Everything was gone.
Wow.
And so, and they gave me an ileostomy, which is the small intestine ostomy.
Okay.
If anybody doesn't know what an ostomy is, an ostomy is basically a means of using the restroom without the normal means. I have a bag that empties into, my stool empties into.
Yeah.
There's urostomies where people don't have bladders, so they have to have something to urinate in. Same thing. Colostomies you still have part of your colon, have part of your large intestine.
Yeah.
Mine, no large intestine, so it's
Complete.
called an ileostomy.
Ileostomy. Okay.
Complete colectomy is what I got.
Wow.
And so it was very jarring.
And you're 20 years old.
20 years old.
You're going through this.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be a normal 20-year-old college student, right? Dating and all that of that goes through your brain. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Here is this, and it was, at the time it was the why me. Obviously, all of that starts hitting you. Why me? Why? And the mental aspect is just unbelievably hard. For anybody that goes through that, everybody has their worst. I say this all the time. Everybody has their worst. Some people's worst is they break their thumb.
Yeah.
Mine at that point was
a
this.
little bigger than that.
Was this.
Yeah.
And so that was in 2003-ish. Around then was when that happened. And then you I end up going back to school. I finished school. I meet my wife there at IU. So I keep saying, if I would have never got sick, I would have never met her.
Yeah.
She's 5 years behind me. So I had to, I was in and out of college, and took me 7 years to graduate.
Well, you had an excuse.
Yeah. So, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's on paper, I actually only took 5 years, but 7 years at a time.
So how'd you meet your wife then?
Fraternity, sorority. I was in a fraternity.
How did your fraternity? So there's so many questions, right? So
there's so many.
We could go a bunch of.
Well, I
different
mean, just I think to set the stage, right? So I mean, there has to be, it's like stages of death, right? I mean, you have to go through sort of the why me, then it's bargaining, and then at some point you had to do acceptance.
Yeah.
Go, okay, this is just going to be part of me, obviously. Like you don't have a choice, but
I kind of accepted it pretty early on. I mean, I was still struggling with.
With any luck, you were feeling better. Because you were going through some serious pain.
Yes,
hopefully that pain subsided. And
there was, and I guess I skipped a lot. The first surgery I had an ostomy, and then the second surgery they had to go in and create what they call a J pouch, which is actually they take part of your small intestine and create a new colon out of it.
Okay.
Third surgery, they go and reverse that, get rid of the ostomy. So I was like, I'm back to normal.
I'm good. I'm bad. I'm good.
Nope.
And then for a year, I was on what they call like a TPN. So TPN is like it's basically nutrition through an IV because I could not eat. This pouch was actually formed what they call pouchitis, which is similar to ulcerative colitis, just in the new thing. And so after a year of basically not doing anything, I wasn't at college at that point. I wasn't back in school.
Yeah.
I asked for the bag back.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this life, I cannot sustain. I'm not going to live.
Yeah.
And, so I went back to the ostomy, and then it was about 3 months later, I decided to go back to school, got back to school, met some friends. My first roommate when I first got to IU was in a fraternity, and he invited me to come to some stuff. And at that point I had accepted it, right?
Yeah.
When I got to that point where I needed the bag back to live, I had accepted that this is my life, right? And that's kind of where I had to be. Yeah. And I did. I went back to school. Was a normal 20-year-old. I was just older.
20-something. You're old.
Yeah. Like here, I'm a pledge of like 22 years old. Guys are 18.
I mean, do you have to explain? I mean, is it?
Is
it easier to explain, or was it very upfront about it?
I'm very upfront about it. Like first, I will tell you, I have one. I mean, I told my wife, I think, like on my first date, and she had no clue what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I
have to go look that up.
I want to get it out of the way.
Yeah,
it's like one of those.
Clearly.
It's like one of those baggage things. Like, you're either going to deal with this.
It's a baggage thing.
Yes.
See what he did there? You made a joke.
But it's one of those things you got to get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I was with her, and I'm with a lot and I just want them to know that this isn't going to change.
Yeah, and your fraternity brothers then accepted it.
Oh yeah, they were there with me almost through this secondary phase of all my surgeries. They were there with me 100%.
That's cool.
They'd come play poker with me, which don't play poker with somebody that's on a bunch of pain medicine.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you can
yeah.
never read them.
Yeah.
Just to let you know.
Did you clean house on it?
Yeah, yeah.
Just,
I think the other way around. You're
Took all
like,
their
I don't
money.
know. I think there's hearts.
I think, whatever.
And you just
Yeah.
don't care. So
We talked earlier and mentioned about the stigma around it.
yes.
Did you find how did you approach
so
that? I mean,
it's-
being
it's-
upfront with it, I think totally helps.
I think joking about it, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know, because it's dealing with feces. I mean,
Yeah.
like poop.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't know how else to say.
Who
it.
doesn't
Like,
love a good poop joke? though?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean-
but it's one of those things where it's society has said that is a gross thing, but
Sure.
everybody does it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you can't. You start
Yeah.
start in life doing it.
Yeah,
You're gonna
yeah.
end in life.
Yeah, and
doing
I think
it. So.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it's upfront, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's the part that
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's there,
Yeah.
you know, and it's but when I first started doing it, I'd always have my shirt off, and people would be like, "What is that?" And I'm like, you know, "It's a bag."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, what's that? And there, you know, I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
it's a bag of stuff."
yeah.
So
And
from a health perspective, though, like you said, you're in really good shape. Obviously, this 3 years of, and then like you said, you're trying to feed through a tube for a year.
yep,
I would assume at 22, 23 now, you're sort of not quite.
no steroids out.
Really?
Like crazy.
Oh my God.
So I blew up. Like I.
Oh, really?
Sure,
Like a
yeah.
balloon.
Okay.
I gained a ton of weight. It was weird. I would fluctuate. Like I was super skinny, and then when they put me on the steroids to try to get the
Then you pump up.
inflammation down, I would just soar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my heaviest I got to was like 257. At
No
one
kidding.
Point, yeah. And,
Wow.
and I'm a small frame, so
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, when I was going through basic, when I got out of basic, I was 119. So you put that back onto a.
Yeah.
I was small through high
Yeah.
school.
You
I
put a
was
whole
very-
nother person on you, basically. yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And
And not a small other person.
no,
Right.
no.
two other people.
And it was so. Yeah, I was not healthy. I mean, I physically couldn't do anything. And then I started to get, it took years to get back into trying, because I always wanted to, I was very athletic.
You're wired
Like
that way to
yeah,
be-
and
mentally you're wired to be active.
competitive.
Yeah.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
Now I went down while I was sick. I stayed competitive, and that was playing video games.
Nice.
I got really, really good at video games. I mean,
yeah.
playing in world championships, playing in Cyber Athlete Professional League. Like
No
when
kidding.
it first started to take off that that video game stigma and went into the professional side of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was in the kind of the early stages of that in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I got really good at that because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah. That was your.
So that was my competitive, to keep my competitive component of my brain, because I grew up being competitive starting at 4 years old.
Yep.
And being good and winning a lot. You kind of always need something that does that. So I continued to do that, and then I guess I got kind of lost there.
Yeah.
So
You're back in college. You've got a girlfriend now that's like,
Yes.
okay, great,
Yep.
accepting what's going
accepting, yep.
on. Was it? I mean, that the first time you take your shirt off, was it not awkward, or was it awkward? Does she care? Did she not care? Was she
Didn't
more
care.
curious? It was just,
Yeah, she didn't
'cause
care.
it was
She
you.
did.
I mean,
She didn't know
with
what it
anyone.
really meant
Yeah.
until I showed it to her, and then it's just I mean, it's always awkward. It's like
Yeah.
But at that point, I was still not.
Yep.
I didn't really care. I didn't have a self identity issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With it, it was just there. In this.
I think that's healthy that you owned it, right?
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is me.
and-
Is that unusual?
But-
I mean, when you meet other people with that, is that an unusual thing for you, or is it
to
be able to accept it? Is easier, or is it other people? It's harder. I mean,
I think a lot of people don't understand it.
Okay.
Like when I first tell them, they have no clue what I'm actually talking about. Now the people that once I explain it, they totally get it.
Yeah, yeah.
Early on, being young, people had no
God,
understanding
no.
of what
Yeah.
was going on.
yeah, I was thinking of other people with colostomy bags as well. Are you
So
like,
that
on
is-
the curve of things? Are
I'm-
you generally faster at accepting, or was it
So there was an acceptance time,
okay?
and then there was a not acceptance time.
Oh, really?
So at one point, my mental finally caught up to me, and I was done.
Yeah.
And contemplated suicide, went down that route, why, the why me part.
Yeah.
Then I climb out of it. And so I think with chronic illness in general, people with ostomy bags, there's a sort of a PTSD, right? I mean, there is.
Yeah.
It's not like a combat PTSD or anything, but there is a PTSD.
Yeah.
You wake up with a bag, you're missing
Parts
an
of you.
organ.
Yeah.
And, fighting through that is just like any other.
Sure.
You constantly on a roller coaster mentally.
Yeah.
You're constantly, well, this just sucks this day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you have great days, and it's great.
Yeah.
But there's very low times, and I think across the board, there's a lot of people that are, I'm in a lot of support groups that I see people, and I see myself in a lot of people constantly complaining, constantly like, this is why this, and just kind of giving up, really, and I've been there several times.
Sure.
I mean, and it just it's difficult. It's very difficult to get out. But once I get to so that acceptance part, those were just a few years here, and then a few years where I didn't accept it, and then a few years where I did. So
Did
it was
you
like
seek out support groups when you were at that point, or did you rely on friends and family?
I relied more on friends and family, and in the last 20 years, so I get through college, right, and we get married and everything, and it's easier to explain this. Like after we get married, then we start our jobs and all of that. Well, I continue to get sick. Like I get put back into the hospital, multiple surgeries more. And so those were when the dips came.
Sure.
Right? When I started getting
absolutely.
sick again and going back to the ER all the time.
Is this my life?
And that's where you talk
yeah.
about the PTSD. It's
And
coming back.
It would just trigger everything, and I would get back in this massive depression, and then I would get out of it. And it was great. I had a wife, I have a great family, I have great support, but it doesn't. None of that. When you're in that depression state, that doesn't matter, right? And
there's almost this weird, you can almost sense there's a weird, because their life is doing okay, like it almost makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
You're able to do whatever you're able to do.
Yes.
I can't do what you're doing. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love, I feel like I'm holding you back from doing stuff. Like, it'd be great to take off for the beach for the weekend. Sorry, I'm sick. I mean, it's like,
right. And that happened a lot.
Sense of,
and that happened a lot with my wife. And that came more when we had our first child.
Oh, no.
So, where I couldn't, go be with them. Like I just felt terrible. Like when they would go to a pumpkin patch or something and I couldn't do it. So there was a whole nother set of depression that came on after Emma was born, my daughter. And it was a whole nother battle. But to answer your question about the searching for the support groups, I never really sought out support because I'm this competitive,
Type A.
Yeah, I don't like
alpha. I'll take care of this.
And I like to toot my own horn kind of guy. And that's just, and that's what my wife says. I toot my own horn way too much. But
you're doing a good job in the show. Checking all those boxes. She'll be proud of you.
Yes, she will be. When she listens to this, she definitely will be.
Yeah.
But it was, it was a lot, and I always wanted to try to do it by myself, even though I would complain to her. She would be my person that I kind of went to, and but she's been through a lot with me and done. But she stayed strong. So, and then and falling into after I had our first child, and I'm not doing really anything physical at this point. I am coaching soccer, which got me back into my competitive part. So I was coaching soccer at this point, but after having her, I got back into this depression thing, and then fast forward, we moved down to Nashville in 2017, I think. We were in Cincinnati. Moved down to Nashville in 2017. All of this time, I'm dealing with ER visits. I'm dealing with doctors. I'm dealing with pain management. I mean, I have chronic pain.
Yeah.
And it's just from all the surgeries, and I'm also dealing with a bunch of surgeries. So we get to 2019. I have my 27th surgery in 2019.
Wow.
So from 2003 to 2019 is my 26. I have 27 surgeries.
Jeez.
So after that one I was pretty bad.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I was very depressed. In 2019, I was admitted into the hospital 52 times. There's only 52.
That's like every week.
Yes.
That's like every week you're in the hospital.
So I was
They just knew you
admitted
by
for
your
52.
first name. They didn't.
Yes. Funny thing you say that.
Yeah,
I got
Brandon
put into a group at the end of 2019. At the end of 2019, in October of 2019, I actually hit a very bad breaking point. The suicide thoughts came back. The saying that to my wife. She, thank goodness, put me somewhere. Had me, put me into Centennials. I think it's the Parthenon or something in Nashville. Is called. I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's a mental facility. And basically I was on a ton of anxiety medicines, depression medicines, and all of that just was making me really even worse than I really was.
Yeah.
When I came down off of that, it was like, what am I doing? Like, where am I here?
Yeah.
Right after that, I got put into a group, and this is October 2019. By this time, I was already admitted like 48 times, in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I got put into a group called Vanderbilt Familiar Faces, which is funny, but it's not about my face. It's actually about the doctor's face. Like when you go into an ER, especially like a Vanderbilt ER, they retest you for everything. They start all over, right? They start all over. Well, they have this program there where when you come in, they have a plan. This is your doctor. This is the medicines they give you. This is you do not scan unless you call this doctor and you let them know that he's here.
Yeah.
The ER follows that plan, and it's incredible for chronic illness.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So
That's a breakthrough. That's a tremendously good idea.
Yeah, and they've been trying to, I think, push that at other hospitals now.
Yeah.
Like they've had grants that go out to each other. It's an incredible idea because literally in the program Epic that they use at the hospitals, as soon as I walk in the door, this thing pops up in front of everything and says, "This is who I am."
Yeah.
And this is what he has.
Well, after about 30-second time, you're like, no, I don't need it.
Because I had to fight that.
Yeah.
That was another thing. Like you're going in and telling the doctors the same thing over and over. And this is how you do that. This is how to get me out of here. This is how to get me out of here quicker. And I would be in there 5 days just fighting that, right?
Yeah.
Until I got to them out.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. And then they finally would get out, and then I would be right back in.
Yeah.
And there might have been. I'm sure there was some at that point there was physical addiction to medicines. I don't mentally think I thought I was out seeking it, but I'm sure I was because there's pain medicines involved. There was anxiety medicine. Yeah, strong pain medicines. There's anxiety medicines. There was all kinds of stuff that was happening. So I come out of this mental state, and they put me in this Vanderbilt Familiar Faces group, and basically, then COVID basically happens in March of 2020? Is that when it really happened? That's when kind of everything flipped for me. COVID was a really good thing for me. I started working from home. I work in IT, so I could work from home most of the time. I need to work at where I work, but they allowed me. And I would, if I found myself stressed, I started just like, I'm just going to go run. And I just started running again. And that was where this is where my journey turns into the being an athlete again.
Nice.
And
do you consider yourself stable now as far as like physical? Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we get to November of this year, it will be 1 whole year that I have not been admitted to the hospital.
Knock on wood, right here.
Since 2003.
Wow.
So that is that's a huge thing. So 2019,
that's 20 years,
52 times, and then like in 2020, I think it was 8, and then
is it
2021? It kept ticking down.
Yeah.
Is it? It's intriguing. Is it your body is finally going through the hell, or is it the medications, or is it a combination of a bunch of things?
I think it was a combination of a lot of things.
Okay.
First off, the getting in that group was a big plus, right? They started talking to my GI docs, my pain docs, like, what's the plan? How do we get them in and out? Like and mentally getting in and out is much better than staying in, right?
Oh yeah. Because
So that helped a ton. That helped my mental, and that helped my physical. Like, and they balanced my medications, which were, way out of whack anyway.
Yeah.
And they got me on the right stuff. We came up with plans. If I ever get put on a new medicine, I'm in the hospital when that happens. I don't get put on a new medicine when I'm at home because I'm very hypersensitive to medications.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My allergy list is like a mile long because I figured out so many that I can't take.
Yeah.
But it was a massive combination of that. I started eating better. We didn't go out to eat as much, so we were cooking at home.
Sure.
So you can control.
Yeah, so we controlled more of what was happening.
What you could eat.
Makes sense.
I continued to have the flare-ups, but they were spread out much more.
So just asking that question from a diet perspective, like is there absolutely no on certain things you can and can't eat?
There are certain things I'm not supposed to eat. So any intestinal issues, obviously you're going to have a very strict diet.
Right.
I am fortunate, even with my ostomy, I don't really have any problems with any food.
Okay.
We're supposed to stay away from roughage, which anybody that's listening has listen to your doctor. They're going to tell you what you can and can't eat. But I experimented with as much as I could to figure out what it would, because my anatomy has been so manipulated. Think about the dissection of how much has been dissected. Now I'm after they did the J pouch, I'm almost what they call short bowel syndrome. They have removed almost half of my small intestine as well.
Yeah, because they were making the pouch and then removing the pouch.
And then they had to dissect. And over the surgeries, they resected more and more of my small intestine because I was having bowel obstructions. I had lysing of adhesions. I had, I've had 15 laparotomies. So laparotomy is the big incision from like the breastbone down. And that's how many of the big surgeries I've had.
Wow.
So it's
So if you do, how does it manifest itself? It's a cramping? Is it,
It's like a very, very sharp. So what I remember a very bad diarrhea cramp pain, that used to be, that's what this is.
Okay.
And then right after that, I will start vomiting and my ostomy basically shuts down. It's almost like a paresis.
Yeah.
If I go to the doctor, go to the ER, usually they cannot. Sometimes they can see an obstruction, but sometimes most of the time, actually, they cannot see an obstruction.
Okay.
So they've kind of chalked it up to just deal with the symptoms. It's some sort of paresis. They don't know why, but and the reason why they don't know why is because I have so many variables, right? 28 surgeries.
Yeah.
Who knows what has been like? My body's what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Like they're just cut everything. So.
We've already spoiled it. You did the half, which is incredible. Obviously, to your point, COVID's hitting. Here you are. You found a mechanism for you to just sort of, like you said, running.
Yeah. Yep.
Where were you from a weight perspective? Where were you from a health perspective as far as post-surgery? Did it hurt like hell to do it?
No. So at first, so post-surgery was 2019 was my last surgery. That was March. I went into the mental facility in October. And then I was, when I started to run, I was sitting right around 220, something like that. Maybe a little less. But then I started to shed the weight just from the running and eating right and everything like that. And I got down to the 190s, and that's kind of, I felt good. I just started feeling much better when I was running. But with that being said, my diet was I had also changed my diet at the time.
Yeah.
And it took it.
I'm sure you were chasing that quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah. Because I'd always want to fall back into just like almost not the inactive part of me. And because, I've basically lived in hospitals for 20 years, just lying around and doing really nothing.
Yeah.
But then you start to see the benefits of feeling better and everything. And then it came to, in, was it 22? all these years
Yeah.
starts getting meshed together. But in 22, I decided I'm going to just go get some new shoes and start really starting to run. Right, like I was running in COVID, but it was just like, just run.
Everyone was.
Yeah, everybody was
out running. Just to get out of the house.
Just to get out of the house. I would just go run, and
Yeah.
I wasn't training for anything. I wasn't doing anything like that. And then after COVID stopped, I didn't really run anymore. And then that's when we fast forward to not 22, because 22 was it was. So I'm sorry. In 2022, like the day before Memorial Day, I was like, I'm going to go buy some new shoes. Got there, and then, we have this Memorial Day Classic in Hendersonville tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I signed up for a 10K.
Nice.
And I
Jumped
never
right
even, and I never even really ran a 5K at that point. I ran a couple 5Ks, but so
not consistently.
And I was not
so
ready
like what anybody does. They see a 10K the next day, like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Shoes
I was
must
like,
have really felt good.
I was like,
Wow, these are so nice.
We'll try this out. Yeah. So I ran it, and I felt it was awesome. Like, I mean, everything about it, like the people that were cheering me on, and just.
Well, you're back in competition too, right? I mean, it feeds that. It feeds that part of your brain.
And that was one of the things that kind of hooked me in the brain. And I passed a couple people, and they passed me back. And one, it's funny because one person, I passed, and she kind of invited me, hey, come run with other people, like talked about the HRC, Hendersonville Running Club, and then. I just remember her just yelling, "It's more fun to run with people without headphones and like talk." And that's all I kind of remember. And I was like, okay. And I just kept running and did whatever. And then she passed me, and she was having a conversation with somebody and ran the whole thing, and obviously beat me.
Yeah.
And then so that was in May, and I think actually Chat is in May, is right.
Yeah.
It's right before Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So I think what actually triggered me to go buy these shoes was a buddy of mine from home in Indiana. I saw him do Chat, and I followed him.
Nice.
And
that's a Chattanooga half Ironman.
Yeah, right. Chattanooga half.
So for those on the line.
Us locals call it Chatty.
Chat
or Chatty.
Sorry.
70.3.
Chattanooga 70.3.
They're
Yes.
local races for
And
us.
I followed him, and that's kind of what inspired me to go get the shoes. I'm like, if he can do something like that, I can do it. And then I went and ran the Memorial Day, and I thought maybe I can't do this.
Funny, humble.
And but he finished, and it was awesome for him. I'm super proud of him for doing it. And he kept saying, "Well, you want to do this? You want to you should get it. You should do." I messaged him, and he would say, "You should do this." And I'm like, "Well, I had a bike from a long time ago. Like it was, I think 2011. I bought a bike, and I would ride for it was one of my up times of my mental. And I would ride. I rode for a summer in Bloomington. Cycling in Indiana and Bloomington, Indiana is huge.
Yeah.
There's something called Little 5 at IU.
Yep.
And it's like it's just it's a massive race, and it's a huge party for fraternities and sororities. It's a huge party for this, but the race itself, it's done, on cinder. It's a flat. It's a relay race.
It's crazy.
It's one of the craziest things you would see. How they do it.
Yeah,
you should really look it up. If you haven't
out.
seen it, you can just find videos of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing that they do. And cycling's there big, and I kind of just got into riding and a little bit. So I had this bike that Katie, my wife, was just like, "You're never riding this thing. How are you? You drug it from Indianapolis to Cincinnati, and now you're." And I still got it in the garage. And so I was like, "Well, I got a bike. I can run."
Yeah.
Now, what about the swim part?
Yeah.
I've never swam before. And so I went and I started doing research. I found Heat, Hendersonville Endurance Athletic Team.
Yeah.
And they do this open water swim on Wednesdays, and I just showed up and jumped in and didn't realize how hard it is.
It's kind of hard.
Jump right into open water.
Open water. No, I didn't even do the pool thing. I went. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this in a lake.
You don't mess around, do you? So.
No. I usually try
blocks on a motorcycle, training wheels. Screw it. Just hit the open.
Let's just go. Yeah, go straight to the 10K instead of starting with the mile or anything like that. And that's how it kind of Chattanooga 70.3 came along.
Yeah, yeah.
We will find that out. But, started swimming. I could only make it to the dock, which is like 50 yards, back and forth. And I was just, dying. And I was like, all right, now I get a Y membership. I need to go to the pool.
Yeah.
Started swimming more. And I didn't realize for a month that you actually breathe out in the water. So that's
important. Everyone should know that it's very important.
Breathing out and inhaling
breath. Yeah.
And it was killing you.
Oh yeah.
And I started watching YouTube videos and stuff, and I'm like, this is not right. And so that was in early July, and I signed up for River Bluff. So
nice.
I was like, this is going to be my first triathlon. This is my date, because I knew once I did that, then I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out. And so I go to River Bluff last year, and I get out there, and I am a nervous wreck because I see the water the first night. And I got there Friday, and I'm talking about it's an upriver swim, and I look out there, and I'm like, there is no way I can swim up that. Like the water was just moving.
It moves fast.
And everybody's talking about the year before how it was the worst swim ever. And, they couldn't make it. And, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do it. I was scared, but the fun thing was it reverted me back to having those butterflies at the starting grid when I was racing motocross. Yeah. And to fly back past everything that I'd been through and back into that like childhood memories was incredible. And that was just such a super high for me, even though I was nervous and racked out of my brain.
This is the first time in 20 years you got to be nervous.
Right. That was actually a good nervous, right? Like it's not a nervous, excitement. It's an exciting nervous.
Go, right?
And I did it. I had to grab a kayak. Once I turned that, you're downriver, and then once we turned back up, I was just sitting there swimming, and I just remember looking at a tree, and that tree was not going anywhere.
I've been there before.
And I was like, oh, this is not working. So I had to side stroke it over to a kayak and held on, and I was like, she's like, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. And took off and got back in, did the bike, finished the River Bluff, and it was such a good feeling after that, and just to know where I'd been from 2019 to that point. And
it's fantastic.
And even from everything else, just to know that I finished, and it's a short, sprints aren't
they're legit distance.
They're legit distance. But when you come to, when you look at triathlons, it's not, it's the shortest, right? It's the shortest one
you can go shorter, super sprints.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know you also are supposed to go as hard, like almost all out.
It's a different racing style.
It's a different racing style, right?
Yeah.
Sprint's right there in the name.
Yes. So. Yeah. It's there for a reason. But I finished it, and I was super proud. And oh my goodness, I actually finished the triathlon.
Yeah.
First off, I didn't know how to swim a month ago. I really didn't have any clue how to swim a month ago.
Yeah.
I knew the bike was.
And you self-taught, right?
Yeah. At that point, I was self-teaching myself, and I'm still in a way. But now I have a coach, and it's a different
beast.
Yeah. A whole different thing.
The cool thing is, I guess, and again, I'm coming from a place of ignorance, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was never a hesitation because
of my issue.
Exactly. Like, hey, I can swim. I don't understand the logistics of that. It's no big deal.
So it's no big deal.
Right.
So the way that ostomy works, it's you got to think about it. So, with my ostomy, I have no colon, right? I have no large intestine, and that falls into the nutrition issue that we can get into. Yeah. I don't absorb water. So I don't really absorb water like a normal colon would, because your water absorption and some of your other is in the colon, in the rectum, where it reservoirs and it pulls the water. Yeah. So almost all of my stool that goes into the bag is water. So it has to have a seal, otherwise I would be a mess all the time. So seal inside, and it's also sealed from the outside. So swimming is no big deal. It's the same way with any ostomy. There's really swimming is not a big deal. Yeah. Obviously, check with anybody if you have something like that to make sure. But
absolutely, yeah.
I always say doctors are always going to play it safe. Experiment with yourself because you have to learn what works for you. Right? You have to figure out that this works for me. Diets, everything that I can eat, what works for you, what can't. You know.
And So fast forward to sort of, was it a wetsuit, one in Chattanooga? Like, do you wear a wetsuit?
In River Bluff was not a wetsuit. I did not wear one.
That was too warm.
And that was, it was, I think, and I just did a regular swim there. But I did buy a tri-suit. So that was a different kind of thing because it's a one piece. And where my ostomy,
that's what I was trying to figure out. I mean, you have to be really careful about getting that down, right?
Because if you push on it, you get a bunch of restraint because it's a bag on the front of it. If you think about how tight a tri-suit is or a swimsuit is or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Add anything extra onto that actually has to have some flexibility to it because it's continuously and that's one of the jokes is like if I'm constantly farting, but nobody knows it because it goes in the bag, right? So which is kind of but it's one of those things where I have to be aware of it constantly because if it starts to fill up on me, then I have to empty it.
So I guess from a day-to-day standpoint, I mean, how often do you have to empty the bag? And
anywhere between 9 and 14 times a day.
Okay, so when you're
depending on what my intake is, right? Depending on how much I eat, depending on how much I drink, depending on what I drink, what I eat.
So 2 to 3 hours you have to.
Yeah, if not more.
So before you started River Bluff, do you make sure to empty it before you go?
Yes. So I kind of fast. I mean, in a way, the night before because, and then everybody else is lining up. I'm in line for the bathroom because I want to have it all as much emptied out of as I can possibly can.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And with a sprint, I have to.
Yeah.
And when we start talking about Chattanooga, it's a totally different.
It's a different game.
Totally different ball game. Totally different animal. But yes, I completely empty it as much as I can, and because by the time I get done with a sprint, I have to empty it again.
Okay.
It's at a point of that, and obviously everybody's anatomy is different.
Sure.
Mine is I have a dumping thing, so anything I intake will be out within 15 minutes.
Okay.
I have short bowel, so it's stomach, a little bit of small intestine, in the bag.
So how do you retain the water then to try to stay hydrated?
A lot of drinking.
Oh, really?
A lot of water. A lot of water, and mostly. And it's Gatorade, mostly supplement because I lose sodium. I don't absorb sodium.
Okay.
I put salt on everything. I actually get everything that's like really bad for, I get which is great.
Yeah.
I get to put salt on everything. Yeah. So
and you had to discover that through years. That wasn't before.
Yes,
it was way before triathlon.
Yeah, that was way
out.
that's a lot of just figuring out. I mean, 20 years of being sick of what's working for me. What is not working for me, things that are going to slow my bowels down, what's going to speed up my bowels. If I drink something that's high in sugar, it's going to speed up my bowels. If I
how's whiskey?
No. Damn it. Dark liquor. I mean, and I can enjoy drinks. That's fine, and that's something I had to learn, right? But dark, no. That's a bad news. That's bad. My wife is the dark liquor.
You just look at it like, oh.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm the more like the fruity vodka drinks, and she's more the bourbon.
There you go.
Whiskey. It's like the opposite of what you would think.
So you moved to Nashville not to drink bourbon.
She gets to.
Perfect. There you go. So when it comes to then nutrition then for that sprint, what's your primary nutrition for that?
I just had basically just a toast and a banana before I fast all night. The night before, I realized running that my best thing to have the night before is like a chicken tortilla soup, high in sodium, and it was just had the protein in it.
Yeah, that's funny.
It just became like my thing that I eat before that. That works.
Do you have a night before ritual that you do?
No,
I do. I have a sweet potato and a lean protein, like a petit filet, or because I don't know why. Everyone does pasta and then you poop it out, then like crazy. Yeah, and it's like
I tried the pasta thing once, and it made me felt so heavy.
Yeah, it's gross.
That I couldn't. Growing up, that was the thing. You go carb load the night before your best game. And
but you never carb load the night before. You carb load for 3 days. And then you got to eat at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's when
you're supposed to flip everything, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to. I know. Going into like the Ironman 70.3, I've flipped everything going into that. Like as far as your bigger meal is going to be in the morning, comparable to at night. You want to be hungry,
and you want it to be all
up.
Carbs, less protein. You want something that'll absorb.
So I guess the part I'm trying to figure out is, I mean, the fourth discipline is definitely nutrition, right?
Yep.
I mean, you get the 3 done. So when it comes to that fourth discipline, is it a lot of trial and error for you, or because
tons of trial and error, and I'm still not there yet.
Okay.
I'm still.
What part is a challenge? What part have you figured out?
So as far as a short distance, I figured it out. Like 90 minutes. My River Bluff, I did it the first one in an hour and 40 minutes, which is slow. I mean, it was my first one. I didn't know
You're
what
not the
to
slowest,
expect.
though. I mean, there's
I was happy. I wanted to do it. I wanted
out of the water, dude. You finished. Right?
Yeah, I wanted. My goal was under an hour and 45, and I did it an hour and 40.
Okay.
And I was excited.
There you go.
But
Perfect.
90 minutes. And I've learned this now afterwards, that 90 minutes you can basically do it off of fasting.
Yeah.
And then you're depleted.
Yeah.
After that,
and you're really
depleted. And then you have to start. So coming out of that, I was starving, and I ate, and I drank a Coke, and it went. It went right through me. It was quick.
Yeah.
I didn't really.
You can literally say that. I mean,
yes.
Of all the people, you're like, no, it literally went right.
It literally right through me.
Yes. Like, you don't know what.
You don't know. Yeah.
Trust me.
You don't know what that means.
Come talk to me if you want to. That's funny.
So
So at what point did you decide to get a coach and say, okay, I gotta really buck up for this 70.3?
I was on such a, I guess, athletic high in a way after that.
Yeah.
And that competitive thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, what's next? What is, and I immediately Ironman, the full jumped in my brain. But what do I need to do to even remotely think about the full?
Yeah.
And it was the 70.3. The buddy had just done the Chattanooga 70.3 the year before, so I'm going to do that. I think I booked the hotel 2 days after River Bluff.
Nice.
For Chattanooga, and I signed up.
Now you're
3 days after.
Yeah, 7 or 8 months out from.
But I knew I needed help.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when I started looking for a coach, and I found Sarah.
Coach Sarah Portella.
Sarah Portella.
Give a big shout out to her. She's awesome.
Yep. She's amazing.
She's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted somebody local. I looked up as many people in Tennessee as I could. And it's weird. I wasn't looking for a male. All of my surgeons that have been rock stars have been female.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why. I just wanted a female coach.
Makes sense.
And it's kind of I guess that more of the understanding of the medical issues.
Yeah.
It comes easier, I think, to a female than it does to some males, especially in a competitive
Some
side.
competitive males don't have the empathy that's needed to ask the right questions.
Right.
And do all of that.
And I wanted really somebody that was hands-on, and when you first talk to a coach, it's not them interviewing you, it's more you interviewing the coach.
Yes.
Like,
that's what it should be.
And that's what it should be. And and she was, and her credentials are awesome, like what she's done.
Oh, yeah.
And her racing background and just everything that it was just a right fit. So she became my coach, and she's been very hands-on, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Very involved in doing my training, talking to me, explaining things and all of that. With that came along getting a nutritionist, because I knew nutrition was going to be a massive issue going into an 8 hour,
absolutely.
8 hour race.
Yeah.
And what was going, I don't know where to even begin with any of that. And trying to figure out how to keep my calories.
How do you find a nutritionist that also knows?
That was hard.
There's a needle in a haystack.
That was very difficult. So leading up to even having the coach, I saw a nutritionist at Vanderbilt. Well, that's a clinical nutritionist. Had no clue. Understood UC understands people with ostomies. Doesn't understand how people with ostomies do sports. Because there's not a lot of us. I mean, there's a group that's of ostomy athletes out there I've seen on Facebook.
That's great.
And there's several that have done Ironmans, fulls, and halves. But it's not like 100. I think there's like 10 in there that has ever mentioned anything about that. But there's people that also do ultras and things like that in there. But it's still a very, very small number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you have that much anatomy manipulation, you have to figure out comparable, like,
because everybody's surgery
everybody's
is different.
surgery is different. Everybody's
Yeah.
intestines been removed and are different. Everybody's ostomies are different.
Yeah.
Everybody, just the entire anatomy is completely different.
Yeah.
And it's so I was like, okay, she isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I met with her, and then I looked up sports nutritionist.
That's
That ain't going to work.
That ain't gonna work.
Sports nutritionists are sports.
Yeah.
You know, they have clinical a little bit.
Yeah.
But their main focus is
Fueling the sport.
athletes,
Yeah.
right? And but how do you deal with an athlete that has chronic illness, that is missing half of their intestines?
Yeah.
The great thing was so Sarah is part of is Bolton Endurance.
Yeah.
In sports training. Bolton Endurance Sports Training is what they're part of. And they have some nutritionists that work with them. One of the nutritionists is in New Zealand. He's finishing up his PhD, but he's also the Olympic nutritionist for New Zealand. And he's also, I think, a national rugby team's nutritionist or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's very clinical. He's also very sports.
Okay.
So he has both. He understands everything about me, and understands all you see, which was incredible.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So to find somebody, even though he's halfway across the world, it doesn't matter. He understands it, which he's like a needle in the haystack.
Completely.
And he told me, he goes, man, I'm glad you found me, because there's nobody that would understand this like me.
Yeah. This guy could write a book now, basically, a journal, right? A medical journal on.
Yes, I'm
seriously.
on paving the way on what to deal with me, and
So-
he's still, and we're still experimenting with a lot of things, obviously, because
when you walked into that nutritionist, is there a surprise on sort of, you thought, okay, I think personally, given your uniqueness, right? I think I need to do these three things. And then as you talked to him, was it a surprise on what was going on, or is it very much a
also
collaborative?
shocked him? I think I shocked him.
Said, you do what?
Yeah. He because I remember the first meeting, and he told me, man, he's like, you only absorb, you have what missing? And it's like, he's like, yeah. And he's like, you're doing a 70.3. He's like, oh, and he's a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
And
He's doing the math in his head.
He's just
going
doing
like,
that.
that can't happen.
He's just doing it, and so he starts seeing what I eat every day. He's looking at my labs.
Yeah.
Like, I have to get my labs taken, and I send them to him. And but my thought was, okay, I just eat like a peanut butter and jelly. I'm gonna just do some stuff in between on transitions.
Yeah.
And he was like, no,
that's
not what's gonna work. That's not gonna happen. And I was kind of shocked at that, yes.
Yeah.
But I remember the first meeting, I get on there and he goes, oh no, I am not ready for you. Said with some other words, but I am not ready for you. And he's just, and so we just started diving into it and started testing some things, and we just had to build it up to figure it out. And we still didn't figure it out. Even when I did Chattanooga 7.3, and it wasn't right.
Yeah. Which part?
Just the whole nutrition,
getting
getting into the run. So we had a plan going into Chattanooga that, I was going to do the flip where I was going to be hungry when I woke up for Chattanooga, and I did that. So I was hungry. I ate a couple pieces of toast, peanut butter, banana, and then I was drinking like crazy. I mean, I haven't drank that much water and Gatorade overnight in a long time. I loaded as much fluid onto me as I possibly could. Yeah. And the plan was, to do that and then stop about, 40 minutes before we start. And I did. I mean, you had to wait 40 minutes anyway when you get bussed over to the starting line in Chattanooga. Yeah. And but I was going to use Martin. 320, I think is what it is. But it was a double concentrate of it, so it's super thick. Yeah. So a ton of sugar.
Yeah.
And then I had it was two bottles of lights plus a water on the bike.
Okay.
So, and I was supposed to go through all of it.
By the time you get off the bike.
By the time I get off the bike. And plus, if I could grab anything else once I get through the water, do another whole nother thing of water. But the concentrate was so thick. Like, I mean, it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And
it was hot.
It actually wasn't too bad.
Well, because it rained a lot.
Yeah. This Chattanooga was actually
Chattanooga
cool comparable to the
others.
last.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got off the bike. I felt phenomenal. Like I did the swim. I crushed the swim. It was a wetsuit swim, which
Nice.
Was a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be in the water for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But one thing that I realized is once I do these longer activities, not the sprints, but once I get into like the 2 hour plus, my intestines shut down. Like I don't really empty into the bag. I start absorbing all the water because my intestines slow down so much that it almost creates my small intestines to pull as much water out as possible. And because when I got done with 70.3, like what was coming out into the bag was not water.
Hey, incredibly dumb side note question. How often do you urinate?
Maybe twice a day. It's not a whole lot. It's not nearly as much
because of the water. Because I'm trying to think of that water absorption.
Right.
So your kidneys are kind of like chilling out. Not doing
They don't. I don't produce as much urine as normal.
Sorry, I just
that's a valid point because that is I don't absorb water, so the water's not in my system, so it doesn't need to be taken out.
Yeah.
So, hey, do you cheat when you go to the bathroom too? When you tell people like, hey man, I have a bag, so can I get in the front of the line, or do you it doesn't work?
It doesn't work.
Freaking triathletes, those assholes.
No one cares.
I really
hey man,
tried.
I got because if you came up to me, obviously it depends how bad I had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm sorry for you, but right now,
not gonna work.
Sorry. Yeah, get on.
Mine's working overtime, so I really need that
Yes.
bathroom. But I would totally try to do that. Like, hey,
Nothing. It doesn't work that way.
what a nice community we live in.
I know.
We're really good
have
up to
some
the point
issues.
where no, I get the bathroom.
We
are mean.
We're very self-centered when it comes to that.
The line is usually very long.
So that's crazy. So you accidentally found out after 2 hours that that's almost like a happy surprise, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a happy surprise, but.
Yeah.
I crushed the bike. I was super ecstatic with the bike. I think I got off the bike at 3 hours, right at 3 hours.
Nice.
When I went down to did the training, I think I was at 3 hours, 35 minutes or something like that.
Somewhere,
that's significant.
And we were 6 miles shorter when we did that ride or something like that. So I'm at 4 hours, right at 4 hours whenever I get off the bike, which I'm ecstatic about right now. I'm going in a half marathon at 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'm on a pace for like 6 hours, 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
If I ran my normal pace, I would have been at 6.5 hours.
Yeah.
Getting in the run, I'm feeling great. I'm excited. Back is a little tight, right? Get 2 miles in, and everything in my stomach just starts turning to crap. And I get sick. Okay. My stomach was so full. Because it wasn't going through.
It wasn't going through.
And I didn't have to urinate for the entire day from the morning on, even after drinking all that.
Yeah.
I urinated right before the race, but after that, I didn't urinate like after the swim. And none of that. And so I was full, and that came up at mile 2. So from mile 2 to mile 11, I could only run like 150 meters, and then I would almost get sick again.
Oh my God.
It would just start to
from the pounding.
Yeah, it would just start to build up again, and so I would run, walk for nine miles.
Yeah.
And then the last few miles, my stomach finally settled, and I finished out the race.
You think it's because those double gels that just sort of sat there like a lump?
I think it was just we believe that's what it was. I went back to my nutritionist, and we have a lot of testing to do. But we believe.
You finished it.
But I finished it. Yeah,
Damn,
I finished 7 hours and I think 32 minutes. Is what it was. 7.5 hours.
3 miles into just wanting to vomit every few. What kept you going?
I'm finishing it. Yeah, like my thought. It was funny because all I did was I wanted to finish in time. Like it was 8.5. They say 8.5 hours is what the DNF ends up being. I was like, I'm doing this in 8.5 hours. I don't care.
And they'll stretcher you off.
Yes.
Or
And so I switched instead of watching my heart rate and everything, I just switched to total time.
Yeah.
And just watched that, and I'm like, I gotta go this. I gotta get this. I gotta get this. And
you just gotta keep moving.
And my motivation was just like, I have to prove to myself that I can do this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just made me,
Yep.
I got through it. I have to get through this. And my thought was, I got to get through this to figure it out to do the full. But my thought during that time was like, there's no way I'm doing a full.
Everybody that does a half pretty much says there's no way I'm doing that. How can I double this?
How can I double this? And
then
nutritionally, I couldn't. I was just like, something's wrong here. And, and I wasn't wore out. I wasn't sore. It was just my stomach.
It was the nutritional
side of it. Like, I wasn't like lethargic. I wasn't,
which is all fantastic.
You actually saw me at camp. Camp,
yes. Camp was a month before.
Yeah, and right after after that run, I about fell out because my blood sugar had dropped so bad.
Yeah.
And I do have that issue where if I don't have some sort of sugar in it, it's my blood sugar just bottoms.
That's right. Yeah.
And so,
just your nutrition band is so narrow.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's like everybody in triathlon tries to figure out, the nutrition. I mean, the guy that just won the world championship, right? I mean, last year they showed him with the stomach issues and he's walking the course, right?
Yeah.
And, that band is like, and you're just trying to figure this out, right?
I'm walking a tightrope.
That's exactly. Yeah, there's
no wiggle room.
There's milligrams on either side, not.
And the fall off to you, like this isn't like sour stomach, like, oh, my stomach hurts. It's like, oh, do I vomit or not vomit? Do I? I mean, it's crazy.
It's an extreme.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The fall off is deep.
It's very and when it goes, and it's very difficult to recover.
Yeah.
It's not just I've seen people and I've watched a lot where people's like their just stomach is and they're dizzy.
Yeah.
And they come and they just get back up and they finish and then it all settles for them.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Once you're in it,
you're a day later.
I have to get through it.
Yeah.
And that's where I was, and I got through it. But I was
first off, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I was so excited when I saw your finishing time come across. I was like, I was tracking you and a bunch of other athletes out there.
How does this sounds
just great?
How does your wife feel about it? I mean, I can see on the one side she hates you for it, and the other side she
does. So we have two daughters now. She goes, "Why did you decide to do this after we had?" So one of them turns a year and a half next month. So. She's a little bitty, and she's like, "Why did you decide to do this now?" But then flip to actually just last night. She goes, "Well, when are you gonna?" I've taken. So I did River Bluff 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I've taken kind of a small little break because I just kind of burned myself out. And she's like, "When are you gonna start running?" She's like,
it's amazing how they want you out of the house quickly. It's like, what, you're hanging around a lot. She's kind of used to that.
You just told me not. She's like, well, you're playing more video games now, so let's.
No, I'm not.
Back out again.
But I think there is a mental break that everyone has to take. Right?
Yes, everyone should. Everyone should get the non-structured
because
training,
I was
being exercise,
right, and that's where I needed to be. I needed to be where I just go do what I want to do on my own instead of waking up and looking at Training Peaks and be like, I gotta do this today.
I gotta do.
But I have to say, on the flip side, I mean, I'm pretty much done with triathlon for the rest of the year, and the idea of not having a 6-day-a-week schedule is sometimes kind of hard.
It is.
Like, what do I do today?
It is at first.
Like, I'm sitting around,
and then it becomes really good, and then you want it again. And as soon as you want it again, that's when you're ready to get back into the
like today I'm not training, and I feel weird. Like I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like that throughout my entire training experience for Chattanooga. Like if she puts something on there and, I'm busy, my daughter's,
got a lot going on.
a job, full-time job, everything. I'm just very busy. And training for that was hard. I was waking up early, and then the days that I missed the mornings, I was like, Katie, can I do it tonight? And I was like, okay, well, he went and did it. And it was just, it's a discussion you need to have with your spouse, because it's a lot of time, especially when you do something like a 70.3 or anything higher.
But this version of you, I bet clearly is a much better version of you, right?
Than 2019 or anything like that. Anything that was before this. She sees the benefits. She knows it's making me mentally better, and it just she can tell when I'm off mentally with other stresses are coming up point. It's been really, really good. It's been good for I think our relationship in general has been
Yeah.
you know,
Well, there's a
healthier.
self-confidence that's back, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're achieving things now where
Yep.
rather than just
You're back. The
surviving
real
the
you.
next
Yes.
thing, right?
Yes.
To your point. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been
That's
in
my
valleys
life for
that-
20 years was surviving what is
Exactly.
next.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy.
you're leaning into something that
Yeah.
and then you get to see the reward from it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
even though that you know the run was complete shit, pardon the pun,
No,
but it was
no.
just like it,
No, it was.
it was just it was
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
It was
It
something
was.
you had to go through.
Yeah.
You know, that medal, it doesn't matter. The medal's the same.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what I train with. The guys that I met through Hendersonville are incredible. Everything
Yeah.
that they're like, who cares, man?
Yeah.
You're, You are a 70.3 fin. You're a
Exactly.
half Ironman
Dude,
finisher.
that's huge.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
you finished.
Good or ugly.
She's like,
you're
she
still
goes
a
that
finisher.
he's like that's the definition of an Ironman.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did not quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though everything was against you,
Yeah. Mhm.
you didn't quit.
Yeah.
And thinking back, that's kind of been my, there's been times where I wanted to quit, and mentally I almost got to the point of completely, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Whether that be intervention between my wife saying, "Go get yourself fixed, get,
Yeah.
get your
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
together,"
Yeah.
and finding doctors and stuff, but I didn't quit. Right.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, I've been doing that forever
Yeah.
that I can remember.
Yeah.
And
So you're going to go for the big dog?
no, not yet.
Okay.
No.
Is it
so
something that kind of-
yes, it's in there. It's in my training time. It's
Training time, and then you got a lot more to figure out.
I got a lot more to figure out
Because it's not just double the distance; it's
Right.
like exponential.
Yeah.
What it does to your body.
Yeah,
So,
and I have a lot to figure out. I've signed up for Chattanooga next year. I'm going to do North Carolina next year.
Nice.
nice,
Both 70.3,
nice.
and those are going to be my two more tests with nutrition and things like that. I just have a lot to learn with the nutrition side
Yeah.
because, like I said, we walk. I have to walk this tightrope of trying to figure out how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a lot of learning. So I'm happy I completed Chattanooga. I'm very proud of myself for completing
Absolutely.
Chattanooga.
Absolutely.
But I know I didn't. I don't feel like I conquered it.
And that right there is a drug. Right.
So like
That's the competitive side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I didn't.
You start thinking of the four
conquer it.
things like, well, if I did that, well, if I didn't do that.
Well, now you want to come back and conquer the run.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
You want to
I
figure
want
that out.
to figure the run out
and set your
after
personal
being
best at
after
Chattanooga.
being on a bike for 3 hours.
Yeah.
How do you do a run like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not all Ironmans are the same, so you may be able to find one. Like California is, a pretty fast one, right? Arizona's fast.
And
Florida's fast,
and,
right? So
apparently North Carolina's got a fast bike and a pretty simple run. It's not as challenging. I did pick one of the more challenging, I think, run courses in the circuit to try. But
Why not?
why not?
well, now you know. Well, you have experience at it, so
If
now
you can do
you're
that
going in
one,
next
you
year.
can do any of these.
so
Yes,
we're
yeah,
Fantastic.
and that's kind of where I was. I wanted to do Chattanooga, and that's where I wanted to do the full. So I wanted to get the, you do everything
Yeah.
pretty much twice at
Another
that
course.
point. Yeah. So
another course.
after Chattanooga, I did some sprints. I did an Olympic.
Yeah.
And then I did River Bluff again, which was my 1-year anniversary.
Yep.
And
Keep going back to that one.
Yep. I mean, that's going to be the one that
Yeah.
I think it's my marker.
Yeah.
My marker one, and I crushed it. The River Bluff, I did awesome. I did an Olympic at Fall Creek Falls, and it was
Yep.
horrendous. I just didn't have it in me.
Yeah.
That was another nutrition thing. I think that I had to figure out because I didn't realize the swim was as long. It was non-wetsuit.
Yeah, it was a longer
lake
than a
swim.
typical Olympic distance
it's like
swim.
it was like 15 or 16. I think,
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah, it was 16.
Yeah, it was a little
meters.
longer.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only two. It was 200 short. They were 200 meters shorter than a half.
Yeah.
So, but at the Chattanooga, I had a wetsuit, downriver swim.
Yeah.
I had some things with me.
Yeah.
This was not that way.
Yeah.
And I got out of the water and I was just like, I got on the bike and I had no power. And
Yeah,
I was like, maybe this is my distance. It's either a sprint or 70.3. So,
Yeah.
but I got to River Bluff this year and I I shaved was almost 30 minutes.
That's great.
Yeah, I did it.
Well, you know how to swim this time. You're not a month old.
That's true. But I also crushed the bike. I was 4 mile an hour faster on the bike.
Yeah, it sounds like your bike is like the one thing that you really.
It's like riding.
It's speed.
It's motocross. It's speed. It's fast.
Speed.
I love pack riding. Like I think I would love crit racing. I think I would really like it.
We'll talk.
But I
collapse along your broken collarbone. Yeah, it's fun. You should do it.
But I race motocross.
Yeah.
And motocross is like this.
Oh no, I get
going
it.
much faster.
I get it.
Jumping and
no, it's the adrenaline because I did crit racing.
Yeah.
And the adrenaline on it is.
I understand the
absolutely
wrecking and all of that.
It's
now that
you.
I'm not.
It's the others.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that I'm
Especially-
not 8 years old falling, I'm 40
yeah.
and gonna fall. So
Well,
it
and you're
might hurt a
lycra
little.
on
The other Cat 5s that think that they're Cat 1s,
Yeah.
they're the ones that take you out.
Yeah,
It's not you, it's them.
Yeah, the joke is 2 people are going to go home in an ambulance. You just don't let it be you.
Don't let it be you.
Unfortunately, it was me one day. So
Yeah.
because the concrete and lycra don't go together at 30 miles an hour.
No, doesn't
But,
mix very well.
It doesn't mix, but they're a ton of fun. Absolutely, you're right. The adrenaline you are on, you don't think about anything but the wheel in front and the wheel beside you. That's it.
And
You have
that's
nothing else to think about.
I think that's
you're bumping elbows.
I think that's where I would fall way back into that motocross racing because I would be.
Oh, you'd love it.
I would absolutely love it. And I love riding the bike is my strength out of the three by far.
Yeah, you just got to be okay with the fact that you're going to hit the deck, and if you're okay with that, like if you're okay with the ramifications of that, go nuts. If you're not okay with the ramifications, I mean, you just got to think about it, right?
Yeah,
and,
that's
how I got into triathlon, by the way.
Was doing crit and then went
doing crit and then coming back 7 days out of the hospital and then my wife going, I guess they're done now. So I understand that in triathlon you have a 5.
You have to be away from everybody.
So, how about we do that for a while? I'm like, all right,
Let's try that.
let's try that. I'm like, okay.
You have to have a distance.
Crit racing's over. So road racing's a good one. Anyway, so it was fantastic talking to you today. I mean, we really appreciate you being open about it. I know there's sensitive topics that you're talking about, especially your mental health, and it's when you talk to people about the capability, or do you talk to people about like, hey, I'm doing this. I mean, kind of. I always go back to like, what's your excuse, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's to some degree I do that.
Yeah.
But I also have a sensitivity to people.
Yeah.
Because when I was in that zone of where I couldn't physically do it.
Yeah.
Mentally, maybe if I wanted to, I could try, but physically I couldn't.
Yeah.
You have to be in that, what's your excuse kind of thing, but there's also
what's your capability?
What's your capability of doing it
absolutely.
too. So, but being positive and just saying you can do it and just figure out a way to do it, right?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to figure out I could do something like this.
Yeah.
And a lot of trial and error, a lot of issues. But here I am.
Yeah, the Rubik's Cube isn't figured out yet, too.
No,
so that's part of the fun of the challenge, right?
Yeah, it's it's still a puzzle that I have to still figure out, and when I do decide to pull the trigger on that full, because it's going to happen at some point. Yeah. Probably when my kids are a little older and I can commit to the training time because the training time is ridiculous.
It's a family commitment. It's not your training.
Commitment.
It's
Correct.
everybody's training. Yeah.
And so that becomes, it's one of those things. And, but I have a lot to figure out until then.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And
cool.
I'm excited. I mean, this community and everything about it has been, just so welcoming and so encouraging.
Ironically, except when you have to use the bathroom.
Except for that.
Isn't that ironic? Of all the things. Of all the things.
I've never tried it, though. I haven't. Maybe I should just walk
lean
up
into
there
that one a little bit.
Like, hey,
I have a condition. Just really loud.
I think we want to have you back on and follow up with you next year.
Okay.
After your other races, because I'm really interested on the nutrition side of things, how you dial stuff in and do that.
We're going to start our new year with a triathlete journey.
Oh.
So
hey, maybe
we could follow you.
We could follow you through your training.
That would work.
Let's talk about that because that would be great. That would be really good because we'll be looking for a couple of new athletes for next year to follow them through their journeys, and I think you'd be a good candidate for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk more about that.
Sign right here on the contract.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
sharing.
Thank you for having me, and and if anybody ever needs to talk about something,
reach out. I'll have the
reach out
contact information on
because
the show notes.
More than likely, especially health-wise, I've been there.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, I've been there. You know, I've lived in the hospital for a long time. But now I'm not, and it's great. And any inspiration I give to anybody, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Just know you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's people out there that can help you.
That's
and
fantastic.
it's been through it.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Give us your thoughts, your feedback. Ask lots of questions. We've got the Facebook page. You can hit us a bunch of different ways. So hit us up with some questions. We'll follow up with all of that. 5 stars, thumbs up, all that good stuff helps the algorithm and gets us out. And share this. Let everybody know. And thanks, guys, again. Appreciate it all. And we'll catch you on the next one.